Jill. Great. Okay, so again, thank you all for sharing. Being here. We're really excited to share this program launch with you. The program should be launching in July, so we're really excited about that and excited to get things rolling with enrolling battery OEMs. So first we'll talk through a history of CCAs, then we'll talk through really the program overview, the submittal process, and then Jill's going to wrap it up with marketing and our SDCP brand guidelines. So we'll start with an introduction. I'm Emily Fisher. I'm the Senior Program Manager on the programs team. Jill Monroe, who did the introduction, she is the Senior Marketing Manager. She'll be closing up this presentation. And then Tessa Tobar is our Senior Program Associate supporting the program from the programs team. All right, so on to the history of CCAs. So I did want to start off just with a little history. Back in 2002, California State Legislature enabled community choice aggregators in California. The legislative bill stated that community choice aggregators would be local, not-for-profit energy providers overseen by local elected officials. While most of the action has been in Northern California, CCAs have started growing in Southern California over the last 5 to 10 years, with SDCP forming in 2019. There are now 25 operating CCAs serving 200 cities and counties across the state, delivering over 14,000 megawatts of clean energy to 14 million customers. So this graphic references, where the CCAs are located throughout the state, and we're really excited to be a relatively new one down in the San Diego region. So for San Diego Community Power specifically, we obviously are a community choice aggregator and therefore a not-for-profit public agency. We formed in 2019 with the cities of San Diego, Chula Vista, Encinitas, La Mesa, and Imperial Beach coming together to establish a joint powers agency. We started serving our first customers in 2021 and completed enrollment of the first round of cities in 2022. In 2023, SDCP enrolled the city of National City and the unincorporated areas of San Diego County. We've continued to provide reliable, cost-competitive electricity to our customers, and we serve about 60% of SDG&E customers, which is nearly 1 million customers, making us the second largest CCA within the state of California. SDCP was formed to purchase clean energy on behalf of its communities, similar to the mission of all CCAs. So this means that SDCP is different from traditional investor-owned utilities in that we don't own or operate the energy grid. That is still handled by SDG&E within our service territory. Instead, SDCP purchases the energy needed to supply its customers by contracting directly with renewable energy providers, and that energy is provided through SDG&E's existing power lines. So this introduces competition and more local control into the energy market, allowing SDCP to negotiate for cleaner and more local energy at competitive rates and to reinvest revenues in community projects and programs. As a community provider of clean electricity, SDCP has the opportunity to support energy efficiency and decarbonization programs, develop more local renewable energy resources in the San Diego region, and invest in innovative clean technologies and energy-related job training. So like I mentioned, we reinvest funds back into the community through incentives, rebates, education, and more. Our programs are designed to help customers reduce their utility bills and reduce the barriers to participate. So our mission really is to provide affordable, clean energy and invest in the community to create an equitable and sustainable future for the region. And we're doing that through the Solar Battery Savings Program. You'll see a lot more programs coming up over the next couple years. And I did want to just mention the funding for this program was a creative approach. The programs team is working closely with the power team. The power team really are the folks who work on the contracts with large scale utility developers for purchase power agreements and energy storage agreements. And so the programs and power team are working closely to essentially fund this program to impact the local community. So by us working together, we're making an effort to ease the amount of energy we're buying from those large scale utility providers and instead reinvest in our customers and pay our customers for using their clean energy assets when the grid needs them more. A lot of programs offered by CCAs, or not a lot, but sometimes they're funded through state or federal initiatives, but this program is funded fully through SDCP, and we're really proud of that. Now on to the Solar Battery Savings Program overview. So I want to start off by saying that we created this program to help the industry with the transition to net billing tariff. We understood that the value of net export is going to be significantly reduced or is significantly reduced with net billing tariff. impacting the economics of standalone storage and vastly impacting the industry. So to improve project economics and to continue to support the solar and storage industry, we wanted to create an incentive program for storage. So as a reminder, I know you all know this, but on December 15th of 2022, the CPUC established net billing tariff as the successor to NEM 2.0. So NBT officially went into effect on April 15th of 2023, with SDCP operationalizing it in our billing system in December of 2023. So we recognize there is a lot of customer value to adopting a battery with solar within the situation where customers put on net billing tariff, because it enables customers to, one, reduce their energy bill by discharging during on-peak periods, two, leveraging credits or the ACC exports, which tend to be a little bit higher in those evening hours if there is battery export going back to the grid during that time. And specifically, SDCP is offering a significant upfront incentive to offset the initial cost of a system and the performance incentive for dispatching the battery during a 2-hour window that aligns with the on-peak period. And when I say that dispatch, it's referring to dispatching or discharging the battery to the home or the grid during that 2-hour window. So we are a little bit different from a lot of other programs where they're requiring it to be exported. We're allowing it to be reducing the demand at the site at that time because that is supporting the grid when demand is high, essentially minimizing outages throughout the community. So there are two images shown here. These are essentially both sides of the spectrum in terms of how customers can participate in the program. We'll get into the details in a couple more slides. But the top one really shows a customer using their battery for self-consumption during those on-peak hours, but still participating the minimum 50% of their battery during that 2-hour window. So in this example, the 2-hour window is from 7 to 9 p.m. And so the battery is being used for self-consumption, but the additional power that the battery is able to discharge at that time is going back to the grid. So that full 2 kW for both of those 2 hours is getting paid that 10 cents per kWh. And then the image below shows an example where a customer is participating a lot more of their battery and not necessarily using it for self-consumption. We see this may be the case for CARE/FARE customers with their reduced bills because of their eligibility within these low-income programs that reduce their utility bills. And we do have 11-cent adder onto those ACC exports for those CARE/FARE customers. So for them, it may make more sense for them to participate more of their battery and leverage those exports during that time. And then on to program goals. So our first and primary goal is to continue solar and storage growth throughout our service territory. We've seen massive growth over the last couple of years, and we don't want that to stop. Additionally, we are aiming for 50% of those incentives to go to our communities of concern. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, communities of concern, they make up disadvantaged communities and low-income priority populations, and then additional census tracts added by our member cities. Currently, San Diego and Chula Vista have added additional census tracts, although more could be added in the future. It ends up making up about 55% of our customers. So we will have an interactive map available within the portal for helping contractors and battery OEMs, if they choose to use it, understand when a customer may be within a community of concern. Our next goal is to support our agency goals with providing clean, reliable energy to reduce our demand on a daily basis during those peak periods. We also want to leverage non-SDCP incentives like the Self-Generation Incentive Program, or SGIP, or the Disadvantaged Communities Single-Family Solar Homes, DAC/SASH, or the City of San Diego Solar Equity Program for our customers to minimize the overall cost of a new system. And finally, we really want to build strong relationships with our customers in the industry. We are still somewhat new to the region, and we need to continue to grow our exposure to our customers through programs like these. And we can really help build our relationships with our customers through contractors in support of this program. And then for customer eligibility, they must be an active SDCP residential customer. If they have opted out, they must return to SDCP to be eligible. We have the link provided below in case they do choose to re-enroll. System equipment must be interconnected and permitted by the agency having jurisdiction, so the city or the county if it's in an unincorporated. Batteries must be fully charged by on-site solar. Part of our goal is for clean energy, so we wanted this program to support that. And then batteries cannot simultaneously be participating in any other active demand response programs. So I mentioned SDIP on the previous slide, which isn't necessarily calling on the battery, so it's not an active demand response program, but programs like ELRP or the CEC's demand side grid support program, we're not going to be allowing for dual enrollment, at least at this time. And then existing battery systems are not eligible for this program. Currently, it's really focused on new systems being installed, although in the future, we may be able to offer the performance incentive for existing batteries. And so here's the general program summary slide. I know this is a lot, so we'll walk through the top half first. So for our program incentive structure, this is essentially it. So we have two different upfront incentives, one for our market rate customers and another for our non-market rate customers. So that includes our CARE and FARA customers, or really our low income qualified customers. CARE is able to leverage a 30% discount on their bill, and FARA is able to leverage an 18% on their bill. There's more details on this within the program manual if you do choose to look at that. Or want to learn more. And then our communities of concern, which I mentioned a couple slides ago, also makes up our non-market rate customers. So we'll walk through market rate first and then go through non-market rate. So there will be a one-time upfront there will not be a one-time upfront solar incentive for these customers, but there will be a one-time upfront storage incentive of $350 per kWh based on the manufactured data sheet's usable nameplate capacity. And so I want to just clarify what that usable capacity really is in reference to. So understanding the total nameplate capacity is often what's on that spec sheet, and sometimes you have the usable capacity or not. It just varies, I think, based on the manufacturer and what information chooses to be shown. But the usable nameplate capacity is that maximum energy of a battery that can be used without significantly reducing the battery lifespan or causing long-term impacts. So really, it's limited by the battery's depth of charge and the efficiency losses. So I do just want to clarify that. Often, it's also named the available capacity, but I know that has been some questions that I've been receiving. So back to this slide. So then the upfront incentive can be paid out to whoever is delegated as the payee on that customer application. So it can be the customer, it can be the contractor, really whoever. We just need the name or business name and then the payment information. And this payment will be made within 30 days after we receive the PTO letter from the contractor. And then in addition to the upfront incentive, there will be an ongoing performance incentive of 10 cents per kWh for the actual battery performance during a daily dispatch for a 2-hour period that will coincide with the on-peak periods, along with those high ACC export values in September. So a preset schedule will be provided to approved battery manufacturers for that 2-hour period. It's actually in a couple slides. But for example, in January, the dispatch may be required from 6 to 8 p.m. every day, while February, it may be from 7 to 9 p.m. And then that performance incentive will be paid to the homeowner on an annual basis at the end of each year. So that will be paid via check or direct deposit, and we will be offering that performance incentive for a 10-year term. And then on to the non-market rate customers. So as mentioned before, our non-market rate customers include our CARE or FARA customers and or our customers within communities of concern. So these customers will have a one-time solar upfront incentive based on the KWAC. So that'll be up to $450 per KWAC. It's minimal, but we did want to offer this, and it could be consolidated with the DAC/SASH program or the City of San Diego Solar Equity Program or even SGIP. And then the one-time upfront storage incentive will be up to $500 per kWh, based again on the manufacturer's data sheet's usable nameplate capacity. And that is up to because of SGIP being now available for our CARE and FARA customers, and that incentive may cover more of that cost, in which case, it may be less than the $500 per kWh. And then again, the ongoing performance incentive will be the same at 10 cents per kWh for the actual performance during the daily dispatch. And next we'll move on to the bottom half. So we are allowing customers to enroll weekday only or weekday plus weekend, which is essentially 365 days per year based on their preference. We are hoping that they will enroll for 365 days a year with the net billing tariff, as we expect and hope that most of the customers will want to dispatch their battery on a daily basis during those on-peak hours. And then the dispatch for 2024 and 2025 will always be a 2-hour period, but in future years, it may be extended for longer durations. So we are keeping that event duration open to 2 to 5 hours for the daily dispatch. And then we do want to provide customers with flexibility in terms of what they enroll. So we will allow a minimum of 50% of the battery capacity to be enrolled. And customers can choose different enrollment capacities for the summer or winter seasons for each season. And we do want to ensure that battery OEMs can operationalize this and making sure that they're reserving that percentage of capacity that's enrolled in the program for that 2-hour window, depending on the time that it is. And we are providing some flexibility in terms of other performance. If the solar isn't able to fully charge the batteries, for example, on an overcast day, or if the customer wants to opt out one day for some reason, they're welcome to do that, but we expect them to perform at 90% of their enrolled capacity each and every month. And then finally, there may be a prorated clawback associated with the upfront incentive. So if a customer unenrolls within the first 5 years, there will be an evenly distributed clawback over that 5 years. So if someone unenrolls within the first year, they will be responsible for returning 100% of the upfront incentive. If it's the second year, they'd be responsible for 80% and so forth. And then here are the dispatch windows. So for the remainder of 2024 and 2025, these are the dispatch windows. So as I mentioned, they will be for a 2-hour period each month until the end of 2025. Battery manufacturers must be able to operationalize these windows so that that battery is discharging the percent enrolled for these 2 hours. And again, when I say discharging, I want to be clear that it could be discharging to the home and or grid. And so batteries must be grid connected to make sure that that percentage enrolled is hit each and every day. And I will go on to the next slide. So in terms of customer management and notifications, there is going to be some communications between our portal with the contractors and the OEMs. So we will have a portal available once the program officially launches in July, and we'll have different access for the contractors and the OEMs. But when a contractor enrolls a customer, the OEM will be notified by email that their product was selected for that customer, and then they'll be able to access the application once they're able to log into the portal, so they can understand what the battery selection was, what the percentage is, and collect basically that customer information in preparation for operationalizing it for that customer. And then after the system is installed, the contractor will be required to upload a photo of the nameplate, which should include the serial number or ID. If your battery, nameplate doesn't have that information, let me know and we can try to work through a different alternative route. But we do want to make sure that there's the ability for the OEM to understand the exact battery that's installed and be able to essentially operationalize it immediately after it's been installed. So they will be notified once that picture is uploaded and be able to essentially operationalize it for that battery. And then the contractor will submit the PTO letter after that photo has been uploaded. And we will send one final notification to the OEM, essentially ensuring that the battery has been operationalized. And then from there, the responsibilities for the program requirements really pass off to the OEM to manage that customer participation and submit quarterly performance data within 10 business days after the end of each quarter. So the end of each quarter being March, June, September, or December. And then with those payments being made to the customer at the beginning of each calendar year for that previous year. I do want to note, though, we plan on launching a DERMS platform at some time early next year, where we'll urge OEMs to integrate with that selected DERMS. If for whatever reason the OEM cannot or doesn't want to, we will find an alternate route for delivering data to us. It may be similar to this manual process as it is now, but I do just want to notify you because once the DERMS is online, and assuming you are integrated with that, then this requirement will essentially be removed because we'll be able to track this data through the DERMS platform. And then in terms of the data collection before the DERMS platform is online, if you do choose to integrate with that, we will have two options essentially for sharing that data with us. One, you can provide us access to your controls platform. So that would minimize the manual push on your end, but also it's a matter of if this information is available, or you can provide the performance data to us through a CSV template that we'll make available over the upcoming weeks. So With the controls platform, you will be required to submit or share with us 15-minute interval inverter data for the battery. So when we go in there, we should have essentially a list of the customers that are enrolled and be able to pull that data along with the battery charge and discharge KW for each of those time intervals. And then for the performance data, it's essentially asking for that same information. It's just copying and pasting it over into the spreadsheet, and then it will automatically calculate the incentive based on when that 2-hour discharge is. And again, we'll want this data on a quarterly basis. We will notify you and the customer once we've calculated the incentive for each quarter, and then we will send out the check again at the end of each year to the homeowner in this case. And then on to the submittal process. So I did mention the portal. We'll get into those details in a few moments, but in terms of the battery manufacturer requirements, we have really a products requirement for the actual battery and then a programs requirement associated with the battery manufacturer approving and the agreement to participate and operationalize this program. So on the product requirements, these are often standard California requirements for batteries. So we'll just quickly walk through these. But the battery must have a single cycle round trip efficiency of 80% or greater. Battery storage systems must be UL 1973 and UL 9540 tested and certified. The inverters associated with it must be UL 1741 and UL 1741 Supplement A tested and certified. And then we require that the battery storage system has a minimum 10-year product warranty. And then in terms of the program requirements, we need to make sure that you can operationalize the program dispatch, that you can share the battery performance data with us for 15-minute interval data on a quarterly basis, whether it's through access to your controls platform or through a CSV template, and then making sure that you've signed the battery manufacturer agreement. And so here's a QR code for the OEM application. I wouldn't necessarily call it an application. It's really just a data input to make sure that your product does meet the specifications for the program and that we have your basic contact information. And then on the next slide is the battery manufacturer agreement. The QR code is here in case you have not seen this documentation yet. And the battery OEM will need to sign the agreement. The first page is shown here. It basically summarizes the term, the grid services requirements, ownership and insurance, and other legal T's and C's. We did want to keep this application easy. We want to make sure we're maximizing participation from manufacturers. But additionally, we tried to simplify the contractor application as well, again, to make sure that we are maximizing participation of contractors. But I do want to note, since a lot of you are OEMs and likely have local installers in the region, we are requiring that contractors have 5 or more years in business, they've done a number of battery installs, and that they are C10 or C46 licensed. So those are the kind of highlights to note, but we also want to make sure that they have a local address because our goal of this program is to really support the local industry. So once you have signed and submitted that agreement and added that information to the form, we will review and approve or deny within 10 business days of submission. So if approved, we will execute the contract or the agreement on our end and send out that executed version with official approval. We're not accepting any changes to that agreement, so I do just want to note that. And we'll notify you using the program email at solarbatterysavings@sdcommunitypower.org. If for whatever reason you are denied, we will let you know why. And if your eligibility status is to change, or if you're adding a new battery that does meet the requirements of the program, you're welcome to reapply at a later time. And then, as you may know, we are currently accepting applications from contractors as well. So we will be notifying them on a somewhat regular cadence of the battery OEMs that have been approved until the webpage is launched in early July. So once contractors are approved, they are allowed to start selling to customers. So that's why we do want to keep them notified of the approved battery manufacturer list. And we do reserve the right to approve or deny an OEM for any reason. And then I just want to show this for reference. This is the participant enrollment application, or what the customer will be signing. We urge contractors to just include this within the contract that they're signing with the customer, since this is for new systems. And we want to make sure that we're not putting more hurdles on the customer with signing additional applications later in the process. So again, we wanted to keep this simple, and then collecting basic contact information, project information, how they want to enroll their battery, and then who the payee would be for collecting that upfront incentive, and the customer signature and their initials on the T's and C's. So this will be made available to you for customers that have selected your battery products once it's completed in the portal. So do just want to notify you, this is what it'll look like, and this is what you'll be able to see in reference to the customers that have signed up with your batteries. I do want to note too, if you do have standard T's and C's for customer participation in BPPs and require that that be signed by the customers, we recommend working with the contractors on figuring out that process. We'd probably recommend that it's included within that initial contract as well with the customers when the participant enrollment application is signed too. We do have the ability to add OEM T's and C's to like the standard documents that will be available within the portal for the contractors. So if you'd like to take advantage of that option, definitely reach out and share those T's and C's with us and we can have them added in. But we do just stress, working with the contractors that are local and enrolled in the program to make sure that that's being added to their contracts. So the portal process, again, with the notifications, you'll be notified once the customer registers with your battery product. So once that participant enrollment application form is submitted, you'll also be notified once that installation's been completed and the serial number and OEM ID has been logged. And then the PTO letter, once that's submitted, you will be kind of finally notified that the customer is really operationalizing this and good to go. So if you're sharing data with us via the CSV template, you'll need to do this for each and every customer, submitting the CSV file on a quarterly basis within the portal. So you'll have to filter by the customers, which is a feature you'll be able to see, and we will have more training on the portal once it is officially live. But you'll be able to filter by the customers and upload that performance data, and we will have kind of a titling structure for how to upload that data to us, so we understand how that data is coming in and the time frame for it. And then in terms of program budget, I know I've said the upfront budget a lot through this, or upfront incentive, and I do want to just clarify, when I talk about the budget for this program, it really is that upfront incentive budget. So the budget allocation for this program will currently be for July 2024 through June 2025. So that's the fiscal year we'll be offering this. Although we do hope that it's really successful and we're able to offer it in future years, that is the plan. But given modifications may happen in the future for the program. So I do want to note, with reservations, once the application is approved, we will officially reserve the appropriate funds for that project based on the usable capacity. And then the budget tracker will be updated. That'll be shown on the next slide. And the reservation period will last for 6 months. But if a customer needs an extension, they can reach out to us and we should be able to respect that. And then there may be a wait list. So if the budget has been fully reserved, we will create a wait list. And then applicants on the wait list understand and agree, though, that the application placed on the wait list may be subject to new terms and conditions and a new program manual if it is for additional funding that becomes available or a new fiscal year funding. And then as a result, there's no guarantee, though, that an applicant will be eligible for the rebate. And then we'll talk through the budget status. So this will be available on both our public facing webpage, which will be available in early July, but it'll also be available within the portal. So you can see the amount of budget that is still available for the program. So in this example, we have a total of $1 million. We currently have $1 million for the program, but we are anticipating an additional $10.5 million. It's getting voted on tonight at our board meeting. So hopefully we'll be having an $11.5 million program for the next fiscal year. And so you'll see here the remaining, so that is what has not been allocated yet. The reserved is what's been allocated and reserved essentially for the customers. And then what's been paid is what has actually been paid out and is no longer in our hands anymore. And this will be updated every 24 hours based on application approval. And next is program marketing. So I will pass it off to you, Jill.
Great, thank you, Emily, and thank you, everyone. And just so you are thinking about things, please feel free to submit any questions you have into the Q&A box so that we can begin to tackle those in just a few minutes, since I know I stand between you and Q&A with Emily. We kept program branding relatively simple for this program, but also intentionally designed to support San Diego Community Power's overall parent brand, while also providing flexibility for contractors as well as for battery manufacturers who may want to identify as a certified partner in this program. So what we have created is our solar battery savings standalone programmatic logo This can be linked up, obviously, with San Diego Community Power's parent logo for use by San Diego Community Power, but also is an opportunity for you as approved battery manufacturers participating in this program to include your logo in a lockup, as you can see modeled here on the screen. These materials will be forthcoming. As Emily noted, we have a public-facing website that is set to launch the second week of July, and we're hoping to roll out and formally launch the program mid-July. So you're welcome to kind of begin using our website as a resource, beginning hopefully on July 9th. With that, wanted to just provide kind of an overview of where we are on timeline. We are working very quickly to finalize trainings for contractors, but also making sure that you as battery manufacturers have the information you need if this is a program you're interested in participating in. We are, as I mentioned, finalizing several marketing pieces, whether that is the logo, our public-facing site, as well as collateral that can be used by contractors for use in promotion of this program to their customers. We, as I mentioned, anticipate the program to launch mid-July, and we'll begin accepting participant applications after that date. I'm hesitant to give a formal date just yet, but as Emily noted, one of the major pieces we're waiting to kind of put together with this program is our contractor portal that will be very critical to managing both applications and identifying customer location and program budget. So with that, I wanted to keep things really simple. The logo use that I went over at the very beginning, if you are eventually an approved battery manufacturer, we will be providing information for you to be able to use the program logo. Conversely, we will also be requesting from you logo materials that we can display on our website so that you can be listed as a certified and approved battery manufacturer for this program. So with that, Emily, I think we can turn things over to do a little bit of moderated Q&A via the chat, if that works for you.
That works great.
Great, and I've got a couple questions already in the Q&A. Given the webinar function this morning, if you do have questions, we will be happy to address those. And I'm going to go ahead and get started, if that's all right. And if you do have questions, please continue to submit them, and we will do our best to address those now. And then obviously into the future, questions can be addressed via our programmatic email. So with that, Emily, wanted to get started. We talked a little bit about program and battery specifications. We had a question about inverters. Specifically, inverters do not need to be listed to 1741 SB for this program.
That is correct. It's supplement A.
Great. Another question around load management. Will load management be a requirement for eligible energy storage systems to participate in this program?
If you could ask them to elaborate a little bit more in terms of the load management, it's not necessarily, I don't think, required for this program, but if you could elaborate and help me answer that. Essentially, the battery is being dispatched at that percentage of the capacity that's enrolled. So that's really all that the really requirement is. We are looking at having a flexible load program going live at some point, I think later this year, maybe early next year, that will include other assets for load management.
Great, thank you. And if the individual who asked that question would like to provide a little more clarity in the Q&A, we can follow up on that as well. All right, I think I'm going to go on to a couple other questions now. All right, speaking of quarterly data, how long do you anticipate the quarterly data submissions to go on forward? Is it in perpetuity for the life of the program?
It's dependent on if the OEM plans to integrate with our DERMS platform once it is live. Our RFP is currently out there right now, so we don't necessarily have information on who that DERMS platform will be. But if the OEM does integrate with them, they wouldn't necessarily have to provide that data on a quarterly basis anymore. It would be pulled in through the DERMS platform. But if the battery OEM can't integrate with them or does not want to, then they would essentially be required to submit that quarterly data to us for a 10-year period. Based on kind of the customer's enrollment. So if the customer does decide to unenroll from the program within some years, then that would not be a requirement anymore.
Great. Speaking of data, for the interval data, would that need to be uploaded all days data in the quarter or just event days data?
All days, because we are having this as a daily dispatch. So given, yeah, you may only be enrolling for the weekdays. So if you really only want to do the weekdays, that's fine. But it's easier, I think, in my opinion, for the 365 because it's weekdays or weekdays plus weekends, which would be that 365.
Great, thank you. What happens if a system in this program underperforms by more than 10%?
Great question. So if they do underperform by, over 10% each month, so if they underperform for 1 month and then they go back to consistently performing, that 1 month, they just won't be paid that incentive. That incentive is roughly $20 or $30 a month, sometimes even less. It depends on obviously the size of the battery, but it's not super significant. And so essentially that's just kind of the loss that the customer's at for not performing. But if they continue to consecutively underperform month after month, we would engage with the contractor, the customer, and the OEM to understand what's going on, to make sure that we can figure out what's happening and overcome it in one sense or another. If the customer does choose to unenroll because they can't meet the requirements of the program, then that clawback would be put in place.
Great, thanks, Emily. We've got a few more questions coming in. Thank you all for submitting them. Wanted to ask a little bit about some of the approval timelines. What is an approval timeline once an application is submitted by an OEM?
Great question. So if the OEM submitting the application, which I think more of on the majority of times, I believe it'll be the contractor. But once the sorry, are we talking about the OEM application?
We're talking about the OEM application, correct?
So OEM application, sorry for my issue with understanding. We will be approving or denying that within 10 business days of receiving it. It's likely it'll be a shorter period than that, but we do just want to give that extra time frame because we are getting a number of them right now.
Great. Speaking of that, when should those OEMs who've already submitted those applications expect to hear back?
They should expect to hear back within the next day or two, I'd imagine by the end of this week.
Great. All right, a couple other questions. Where for the homeowner scenarios, where can homeowners submit the application and enrollment form? Or is that something that we're expecting contractors to do on their behalf?
We're expecting the contractors to submit the application for our customers, just because we do want to ensure that these are for new systems. And so with that participant enrollment application, they're actually submitting it with the contract that is between themselves and the customer. So we can really validate that it is a true project that's going to be installed, to make sure that we're reserving funds for a project that is more than likely going to actually be installed.
Great, thank you. A couple questions on batteries themselves. Is there a max kilowatt per hour with battery capacity the customer can be incentivized? Like, is there a max incentivization for a customer?
Yeah, the max incentive per customer or per homeowner is $10,000. So I haven't done the math on what that is, but I think it's like around 25 kWh or so. It's maybe a little bit more than that, but yeah, roughly there.
Great. Will you, as part of this program, be evaluating warranty eligibility based on the performance of grid services as the warranty may differentiate?
In terms of, so yeah, we're expecting the warranty for the battery product to be at least 10 years, given if it's a number of cycles and that's would exceed the daily dispatch happening on a daily basis for 10 years, then we're okay with that, allowing that as well. But in terms of, I'm not sure if this question is asking about the degradation of the battery too, but in terms of the battery participation, like we understand that, batteries do degrade year over year. And so we would essentially reflect that within the updated enrolled capacity. So that 50% really is the 50% of what's usable of that battery at that time.
Great. A couple of questions on the DERMS process. A comment that yes, a DERMS integration would be very, very appreciated given the regular uploading of manual data. But if you can, knowing that this is currently out for procurement, can you provide any estimates on when a DERMS platform may launch? And given that this is currently out for bid, can you provide any clarification on what DERMS platform or technical integration process might look like?
Yeah, for the first question, it'll likely go live at the end of this year, given, that's, I think, a conservative approach. And then in terms of the integrations, we're essentially opening it up to understand kind of what's the best solution out there. So that's really it. I can't answer it, but we're considering kind of all different types of integrations in DERMS platforms.
Great, thank you. Another question, we're coming towards the end of the questions we've received so far. So if you haven't had an answer to a question, please feel free to submit one. But a couple folks are curious about when an incentive program would be available for existing battery systems, or if that is in the plans for this program.
Yes, great question. We would like to potentially offer that once the DERMS platform is live. So, hopefully sometime next year, we'll have that available for existing batteries.
Great, thank you. If there are any additional questions or comments from your end, Emily, I'd be happy to open it up. We've reached the end of our submitted questions.
No, I just want to say thank you all for attending. I really appreciate your interest and excitement about this program, and we look forward to seeing some more applications and agreements coming in. And then if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Solar Battery Savings at sdcommunitypower.org. And we're excited for program launch next month.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thanks for that great wrap up. It did give time for a couple other questions to come in. So if you don't mind, I'm going to run those past you really quickly. Is there any difference in the process or incentive recipient for batteries owned by third parties in the case of a PPA or a lease?
Good question. No, we're allowing third-party ownership to definitely happen within this program. We would still need the customer essentially to sign off on ensuring that they're okay with how the battery is going to be dispatched. And then they still would be receiving that performance incentive, but for the upfront incentive, we'd prefer for it to go to the third-party owner in that case, just in case there is a clawback associated with if the customer decides to unenroll at some point in time.
Great, thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of the questions we have received. Again, a little bit more encouragement for and excitement for a future of a DERMS platform. But beyond that, Emily, I think I can let us wrap up here and we can give everyone back a few minutes in their day.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. And thank you, Jill.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. We'll provide updated resources following this call. Thank you.